Hi there, this is Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how I'm going to close up this underarm area on this raglan I just finished knitting. So I knit this from the bottom up, and then I joined the sleeves to the body when I got to the yoke so I could then decrease and shape the yoke with the sleeves and body together. So I have these stitches left that create that underarm area that need to be closed up, so there's not a big old hole at the underarm. The other option is I could have bound them off of both the body and sleeve and then just seamed them closed with mattress stitch. I just think that doing it this way can be really nice and tidy and seamless using the Kitchener stitch. So that is what I'm going to show you today. I used these handy little barber cords to hold my live stitches while I finish knitting my yoke. But you know, however you have them on hold, you just want to go ahead and we're going to place them back on knitting needles. I have just a circular needle here, which is what I'm going to use, but you could absolutely use double pointeds would be perfect for this little amount of stitches, or you could even use just straight needles would be fine. As long as you can hold them parallel with both needle tips facing the same way, that's what's important. So the cool thing about these little barber cords is I just pop them onto the end of my needle, make sure it's secure, and then I can just pull my needle right back through those live stitches and pop the cord off. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to demonstrate this is because knitting is flexible. Sometimes with knitting, you just gotta zhuzh things so that they can be the way you want them. And this sweater is a pretty perfect example. I chose to put less stitches on hold for the underarm in the body than I did for the sleeve. And I chose to do that because I wanted to make sure that the pattern lined up in a certain way. Other reasons why this might happen would be if you, say, wanted to add a little bit of extra circumference to your upper sleeve, but you didn't want to do that to your body, or vice versa. So I have 2 more stitches up here than I have down here. So I want to show you how I make that work to Kitchener stitch an uneven amount of stitches. And I'm going to show you how I like to go in and tidy up, because there will be a gap on each side that we're going to need to tidy up after we go ahead and do our Kitchener stitch. So I went ahead, I have just a little tapestry needle here, and I threaded the same yarn that I used to knit my sweater onto that tapestry needle, because it is important that it matches, especially when we get to trying to close up these sides. And I am going to begin on my top needle where I have more stitches. And I'm actually going to begin by just inserting this needle purlwise and slipping that first stitch right off and bringing my yarn through. And that's how we're going to get rid of one of those extra stitches. And I promise it will be fine. And then I'm leaving a nice long tail, because I'm going to use that tail to help close up any gap that's left on this side. All right, so now let's start doing our Kitchener stitch. I'll move my camera in a little bit to make sure you can really see clearly. So again, I am just holding my 2 needles parallel with the tips facing the same way. I've got my yarn on my tapestry needle, and I'm going to begin at the needle tip that's closer to my body. So I'm going to start by going through purlwise as though I was going to purl this stitch. And I'm just going to bring my yarn through. And then I'm going to go up above, and I'm going to do the opposite up here. I'm going to go through knitwise. So inserting my tapestry needle as though I was going to knit and pulling my yarn through. I'm now going to go back to my front needle. I am going to insert my needle now as if to knit, just like I did back here. So I'm going to use my needle to basically knit this stitch. So I'm inserting it as if to knit, and I'm going to pull it right off the end, bring the yarn through, and then I'm going to go through this next stitch on the front needle purlwise before I go to the back needle. So you'll find Kitchener stitch has a really nice rhythm to it. So I just did a purl to end this. I went through purlwise, so that's how I'm going to start back here now. So now I'm going to insert my tapestry needle as if to purl, and I'm going to let that stitch pop right off my needle. And then the stitch next to it, I'm going to insert my needle as if to knit. And you'll notice I just did it all in one move, and now I'll pull my yarn through. It just makes it a little more economical, a little more efficient than doing each step on its own. So I ended this top needle with a knit, or the back needle with a knit. So now I'm going to start down here with a knit. And I'm going to knit, pop it off, and then insert as if to purl the stitch after it and bring it through. And this is Kitchener stitch, my friends. So I just did a purl here. So now I'm going to jump to the back needle. I'm going to do a purl, pop it off, and insert as if to knit. Pull my yarn through. Back to the front needle. Insert my needle to knit, pop it off, purl, insert as if to purl. Pull the yarn through. Purl, pop it off, insert as if to knit. So a lot of times what people end up saying to themselves is knit, purl for the front needle, and then purl, knit for the back needle. Scooting my stitches up. Knit, purl for the front needle. Purl, knit for the back. We're almost done. Knit, purl for the front. Purl, knit for the back. Knit, purl for the front. Purl, knit for the back. Knit, purl for the front. Purl, knit for the back. And then we're going to go knit for the front, and then we're going to go purl through both of these for those last two, and that'll help take care of that extra stitch. And we're just going to pull it. So now if we take a little look at our underarm, we have this just really neat joining where, especially if you zoom, we want to zoom out, not in. If you zoom out a little bit, it really looks nice and seamless. So now we've got these lovely gaps though, and we have to fill those in. So I like to do what is basically kind of similar to duplicate stitch. So I'm going to put my hand inside the cardigan here, and I'll zoom in again for you. And I'm just going to follow the path of some of the stitches around the gap to help tighten it right up and make it look really seamless with the rest of the sweater. So I'm going to insert my yarn following this path here. You can see there's this yarn here, and you don't have to follow the same exact path as me. I'm just showing you an example. So I'm going up like that. You can see the line of this yarn here. I'm kind of following that path. So going under both those legs, and I'm going to pull my yarn through and give it a tug. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so it's not so glary, and I can always bring this up to you. All right, and now I want to do that on the other side. Again, just following the path. So I see this right here, this line. So I'm going to go under this one and pull my yarn and give it a little tug. And now I'm going to come back down to this other side, And I'm gonna follow the path again and bring it up. See how we're closing her up? And then I'm gonna follow this path here. You could also go here if you like the look of that better. So it's your sweater, you get to decide. I promise there's no strict right or wrong here, as long as you end up with a nice little tidy resolution that you think looks good. Also remember, this is the underarm, so probably not a lot of people are gonna see it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And let's see if I can kind of tighten that up. And I can still see a little bit of a gap there. So I'm gonna take a little peek and I'm gonna bring this yarn over here. I'm gonna run my working yarn. Do you see this line? Shwink. I'm gonna follow that one. Come on, you. There it is. I'm gonna pull it back through. And then one more right here and we should be good. All right, there we go. No more gap. So compare gap, no gap. And again, I didn't do anything fancy. There's probably fancy ways out there, technical ways to do this. I'm just now running my waste yarn into the sweater. I'm gonna turn it inside out and weave in my end to secure it. But for now, I'll just put it on the inside. So there we go. See, looks pretty good. And now I'm just gonna do the same thing over here. So this is why you want a nice long tail. You don't want to fear running out of yarn while you're doing this. And who wants to sew in more tails than they need to? So I wouldn't really want to have to add a whole new piece of yarn to do this. All right. So now I'm on my other side and I am looking, I'm going to go right here under both legs to follow that strand of yarn. Do you see that one running next to my needle? I'm going to go straight up. And then I just keep alternating sides. I think that's really the key, is going back and forth from side to side, really kind of mimicking like a mattress stitch, but I'm just doing it along the paths of yarn that's already there. And I think that is what helps it look more seamless so that people can't really tell that we did a little zhuzhing there. Look at that one, was really easy. Easy peasy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and now run this yarn to the inside. And that's it. Where once there was a giant hole, now there is none. I'm gonna flip this over and show you my other underarm as well, so you can see where I've already done this. There you go. Nice little continuous underarm. You probably wouldn't even guess that there used to be a big old hole right there. So I hope you found that helpful and that you give it a try, and happy knitting.